Drew.
Is that Paul Baylor?
It certainly is. Most days.
Man, I feel like it's been forever.
It's been too long.
It has been too long. We should probably, well, I say we. What I really mean is I probably owe the audience a little bit of an apology because, yeah, that was completely my fault. For those of you not paying closer attention to the podcast, we are a week late thanks to my poor planning. But here we are. We are back. Yeah, so a little bit of backstory. I took how do I say this? I took a very last minute vacation.
Perfectly acceptable, yes.
Yeah, this past weekend was the Labor Day holiday, and I think I have lamented before on this program about not having a lot of time off this summer. I may or may not have brought that up before. Anyway, I had an opportunity to take a few days off last week, so what I did is I got up super early last Thursday and drove to South Carolina.
That's quite a drive, yeah.
Yeah, when I say super early, I got up about 2 o'clock in the morning. I was out of the door by 2:30.
Ouch.
Yeah, here's the thing though. If you're gonna do the long road trip down to South Carolina, I don't want the whole day to just be travel. If you leave it, if it's just me, I can make the trip in about 10 and a half hours, which seems like a lot.
That is a lot.
But what's interesting is that I basically have the trip broken up into thirds. So in my mind, it's not quite as bad as it sounds. Like the first third of the trip is basically getting out of Ohio.
Right, okay.
Yeah, the middle third of the trip is getting through West Virginia and Virginia. And then the final third of the trip is getting through North and South Carolina. So it's not super bad. You're not on any major stretch of highway for super long. I think the longest jaunt I have is getting out of Ohio, like I said, which is these really kind of, 2 and 4 lane highways that kind of weaves down through West Virginia. But it's not as bad as it sounds. And, leaving as early as I did on that Thursday, I was able to basically just fall asleep at the pool for the rest of the afternoon on Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I got to see some family members that I don't see all that much anymore. I got to spend some time with my dad. So yeah, it was very, very last minute. And I really, honest to God, I had the best of intentions of trying to do the podcast remote. But I was so exhausted on that Thursday night that there just was no way I could do that. So here we are.
Here we are.
How are you doing? What's going on with you?
I am in peak adult grind right now. Okay. My son is on the golf team, and he's got like practices or matches like 5 days a week. My daughter has started soccer, so she's got practices 2 nights a week. So it always feels like we get home, one of the kids has to go somewhere and do something else. So I spent a lot of time taking my kids to places in cars. But luckily, both sports are over in October, so it's temporary.
So your son is on the golf team. Is that through school?
It is through the school. Yeah, he's in 7th grade now, and that is the first time that the school offers like organized sports. So we're like, hey, you want to do a sport? And he's like, no, I want to play video games. And then my wife's like, no, do you want to do a sport? Yeah.
By the way, tell your son I said same energy, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. But we got him golf lessons over the summer. He seems to enjoy it. I mean, he's been golfing for all of like 3 months now, so he's still, he's still learning. But he enjoys it. He's on the team, so.
Now, the reason I bring that up is he's on the school golf team, and OPSEC. I'm not going to say exactly what school district and everything you're in, but how far have your drives been? Is it pretty local?
Yeah, so we actually have a golf course that's like 7 minutes from our house. But apparently this is the last year. Like OPSEC, don't be creepy. Apparently the golf course is selling all their land to a home builder. So this is gonna be like the last summer that we have it. So it's not been too bad. It's mostly like, but his practices, like he practices like 4 nights a week and usually has a match, and each practice is like 2 hours. But yeah, I mean, it's golf, right? So it takes like, you know.
So I'm curious, how's his aptitude towards that? Because, I've met your son. He's a pretty lanky little dude. I imagine that probably translates well to a pretty decent swing.
Yeah, he's doing okay. He's got a good approach, so he gets on to the putting green relatively well. He still has some issues, driving, but then again, he's also a little dude, so he enjoys it, and I guess that's the most important thing. He's on a team. He's enjoying it. He's learning. Yeah, he likes it better than band, so if we have that going for him.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now your daughter does the soccer thing. Is that through school, or is that more of like a little local club thing?
That is a local club thing. Though this year we decided where we were at, the soccer was just getting unorganized, and she couldn't get on teams that, like, all the teams she were on, like, half the kids wouldn't show up all the time, so they had no subs. So we actually went to a different, like, a city that's close, and enrolled her in there. And it's actually a much better organization. They have, like, I don't know, I've actually seen coaches actually trying to teach soccer instead of just letting the kids run around and kick a ball. So,
obviously not having kids, I don't know the answer to this. And, I played some youth sports when I was little, but I honestly have no idea what kind of the going rate on these things are. So equipment aside, so, I know your son, needs clubs and your daughter needs shin guards and uniforms and things like that. What's the price tag on these things? Is it high?
Well, where we go to school, it is pay to play. But then again, like, I think the fees for Zachary for, like, golf was like maybe $50 outside of all the equipment, and he gets some perks from that. Like, if he goes to the golf course and shows his team, like, they get this nice, like, team bag. He's like, hey, I'm on the golf team. They just give him free range balls. Like, here you go practice.
Really? So $50, and he can, like, for his matches and his practice, there's no, like, fees or anything?
Nope. He gets a shirt. He gets,
Well,
that's all included.
That's astronomically good because, comparatively, hockey, which, you're familiar, very, very expensive sport to play outside of, and again, not counting the equipment, but paying for ice time.
Yes, that's expensive.
And I had assumed golf courses also taking up decent size of real estate and requiring care and feeding of what is essentially just really expensive grass.
Yes.
I have to imagine, if you were to golf that and pay a lot of money, or pay money like a normal person like me, like if I was out there 4 days a week practicing, that would get expensive pretty quickly, I would think. Even on a public course, right? Like,
yeah. I mean, I don't know how they end up making money besides the fact that when I go to watch them in matches, we don't want to walk, so we rent a golf cart. But I mean, that's not that expensive, so
that's awesome. Yeah. Now, does he do like a booster thing? Does he sell like hoagies or mattresses or like other things that the sports kids do?
There has been no fundraisers that we've been given, so yeah,
that's the one I can't figure out. The high school near me, they do mattress sales, which. How many mattresses are you really selling?
Same here. I saw a sign that, like, over the weekend here, one of the high schools is basically going to be an impromptu mattress showroom. And I find that bizarre. It has to be a scam. Right? It has to be a scam.
So, okay, couple thoughts real quick. So, I get it, because I had a mattress that lasted me from 2002 to about 2015. So, like, my mattress was really old. And it was a good mattress. It was a Stearns & Foster, or I think that's what it's called, Stearns & Foster mattress. It held up really well. I mean, your body gets used to it, but of course, I don't do the thing where you're supposed to, like, flip and rotate the mattress. So, of course, we had our body shapes in it and whatnot.
Right.
And when we bought a new bed frame, we bought a new mattress, which, a decent mattress is a decent investment. So
it's an investment, yeah.
Now, I can see the business logic of it. Now, when I was in high school, if there were fundraisers, we sold candy bars and we sold hoagies. Now,
we sold candy bars.
Yeah, so I think the strategy there is low cost, high volume. You sell as many as you can and you make a few $100s. With a mattress, and I haven't looked at the price sheets that these kids have, I have to think that if you sell 3 of those, so many. So many curses in a row. I have to think that if you sell even a handful of those things, you probably make some decent bank. I mean, I don't know what the sunk cost of that thing is. I'm sure there's a margin that the kids are making here. But my God, a mattress as a fundraiser just seems, whoa.
Yeah, I don't know how much the schools actually get with any of these fundraisers. I mean, they have to be profitable for the company, like, running it as well, or they wouldn't happen. Yeah, so I don't know. You have to imagine, like a handful of mattresses and boom, you got new uniforms.
Yeah, so the mattress thing, quick little side thing. Have you ever read those, like, conspiracy theories on the internet about how, like, mattress stores are like a giant, like, Ponzi scheme?
I have not gotten too deep into them, but like, aren't they all mostly owned by like the same company?
Apparently, like the mattress warehouses and all those other things. And you know what, Mattress Warehouse, if you're listening, don't sue us, right? But like, I read something, and I'll try to find a link, and I'm gonna butcher this, but basically, it's like if you were to like plot all of the mattress stores on a map, there's like a disproportionate number of them, like. There's like Starbucks, Walgreens, and like mattress stores all around you, and you don't realize it. And it's like, how many people are buying mattresses? Now, time was when I'm looking for a mattress, I will usually go to something like a Macy's furniture store. They seem to have the best selection of, mid-tier mattresses that I can afford that will hold up relatively well. That's where we bought our last one from. But like, there's these mattress stores just all over the ding-dong-dang place. And it's, how do they all, first of all, if they're all truly competing against each other, like the gist is, how do they all stay in business if they're all competing against each other? Like how many mattresses are you selling in a day? How many people are in that need of mattresses? Because it's not like...
I've never been in a busy mattress store. Not that I frequent them a lot, but...
I am 40. I'm 40 with an asterisk years old. And I have been in exactly one mattress store my entire life. That's it. It's not like I'm going out of my way. I'm not driving down 270 like, oh, a mattress store, I better get off here, right? Like it's not part of my day-to-day. But I'll try to find the link that kind of explains the whole, this thing is like a weird business model that somehow makes money.
Now, my last two mattresses for both of my kids have been off of the internet. So I guess I'm internet mattress guy now, but yeah.
So how are they? Because I have also considered becoming internet mattress guy.
They are fine. They're both like a memory foam off-brand kind of thing. Yeah, they're fine. They're fine. I don't know how long they're going to last, so that'll be... Time will tell for that, but so far I've been pretty happy.
Which ones did you go with?
Oh, geez. You're going to make me go to Amazon. Because I bought them off Amazon.
So you bought it from Amazon.
Yeah, I'm that guy.
You didn't go from like one of those like truly ones that would sponsor a podcast like ours, right? Like like Purple or whatever it is, or right.
Yeah, honestly, I've been thinking about those. The wife and I have been talking about getting like a king size mattress at some point in our future. We still have a lowly queen. Yeah, mattress. This type. Let's see. One was a company called Signature Sleep, and the other one was Zinus. Wow, that sounds really bad.
Wow.
Yeah, Zinus. Oh wait, no, that was the box spring. Never mind. Yeah, Signature Sleep. That's been the brand we're going to. They're not that expensive, but they're kids, so meh. Yeah, I think the full was like $207. No, now they have more options. You can get a 10-inch in charcoal gray. Ooh. Yeah, they're fine. Yeah, I've been thinking about getting a fancy, like a Casper or a Purple, for the wife and I. Casper, that's the other one. So
I have long toyed with the idea because listening to as many podcasts as one does on a 10.5-hour car ride, you do hear those advertisements quite a bit.
Yeah.
If you pull the trigger, let me know. I'm genuinely curious, and if you're a listener and you have one, if you're a listener and you have a fancy mattress, please by all means let us know. Don't let us waste our money. So yeah, I went on a vacation. I got to spend about 3.5 days at the beach in South Carolina. It was beautiful. It's currently being pounded by a hurricane. Yeah, but it was good. I don't do a whole heck of a lot on vacation. I think we've touched on this as well when we were talking about the separate family vacation things. I'm very much a chill out kind of person. My vacation pretty much consisted of the beach in the morning, the pool in the afternoon, board games at night. The family, got together with family. We cooked in 2 nights, and then my dad and I went to dinner one night. So very, very low key. Didn't do a lot. Played some bocce on the beach, which is really fun because we make it really weird. Like we'll dig a pit and put like, you know, the little ball in the pit, and you have to try to get it in. And of course, you know, the beach is sloped, so like our bocce balls end up in the surf. It's funny. It's funny to us. But it was good. Yeah, I think that the Carolinas might be, for me, the best vacation spot that I can kind of think of. Growing up, the great John Siracusa has touched on this, and I think that vacations, especially when you're younger, are just all about making memories. And I have a lot of good, happy memories about family vacations in the Carolinas. My dad's family would go to Myrtle Beach quite a bit when I was younger. My mom's family would rent out a house in Hatteras, so like the Outer Banks and things, and did Hilton Head one year. Wasn't a big fan of Hilton Head, honestly. But yeah, that's kind of where I've been most of the time. Paul, I know that you are a separate vacation guy, and
Yep.
I am too. But when you guys go, do you guys have a spot that you constantly revisit, or your wife and the kids constantly revisit? Or
I mean, the wife and the kids, they go to Myrtle Beach just about every year. That seems to be their go-to place.
Where do they stay down there? Do you know?
I have no idea. I think they mostly go to like North Myrtle, and my wife will like at the last minute decide. Like she'll go like, "Hey, we want to go this weekend," and then she'll like postpone making any actual plans. I think last time she basically just tries to find either a good deal on a hotel that doesn't scare her, or like an Airbnb. That's what she did this year, and she drives as well. She wakes up early in the morning, not like 2 a.m., but like they usually hit the road by like 6 or 7, and spend the day driving.
Mm-hmm. I got to be honest. I am a fan of the long road trips. I am. I don't mind it at all. I don't know if that's a Midwestern thing. But here's the thing. If you want to fly to Myrtle Beach from Columbus, first of all, flying anywhere from Columbus can always be a little bit of a pain unless you're going to a major hub airport. It is kind of a crapshoot. Yep. Now, interestingly enough, a lot of people don't know this. We actually have 2 airports, like 2 commercial airports in Columbus. We have John Glenn International, which is the big boy. And that's the one where all the major carriers fly in and out of, and chances are if you're flying into Columbus, you're flying into there. But we also have Rickenbacker Airport, which is on the southeast side of town, not too far from you, I don't think.
Not too far from us, yeah.
Yeah, and that airport is a lot of budget carriers, a lot of small commuter airlines, and Allegiant Air has twice-a-week flights to Myrtle Beach. But here's my problem. If I wanted to take that flight, and I think we haven't fully covered my aversion to flying fully yet on this podcast. That could be an entire 50 minutes right there. But if you want to take that flight, they fly, I think, on Thursdays and Tuesdays. So the going down would have worked for me. Wow. That would have worked, but unfortunately I'd have to fly back on a Tuesday. And they have like one flight a day each way. So the schedule didn't really work out for me. But that's like the most direct flight you can get from Columbus. I mean, I could fly like a Delta or an American or something, but it's like 1 or 2 connections. And like you have to like fly north to fly south because that's the world we live in now. Yeah, so I don't, it's one of those things where, yeah, it's a long drive. And if it was any other major city, like if I was going to, say, Charlotte, right, I probably would make that flight. Because like chances are I can get a direct flight out of a couple different airlines to get there. If it were like Chicago or, some other major city that was far away, I would probably fly it. But the fact that it's Myrtle Beach and I like having my car there because there are things that I like to do when I'm there. For example, I always like to go to Cliggs Kites, which is a store my dad and I always used to go to. It's a pretty cool store. A lot of odds and ends stuff. Obviously, they do sell kites and windsocks and things, but they sell a lot of other little knickknacks and things. And I usually pick up a couple souvenirs there for people. But I like having my car down there. But it's the long drive really doesn't bother me that much. Now if I was riding in the car, it might be a different story. But then again, I could probably sleep if I was riding. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not a long drive kind of guy. Like 4 or 5 hours and I'm done. I'd much rather. Actually, really like 4 or 5 hours in any kind of transportation is kind of my personal limit. But like luckily for me, on a plane that gets me all the way to California, and that works for me. So.
Yeah. Now, interestingly enough, speaking about long drives and getting old, I have encountered a very strange phenomenon that is new to me. and I don't really know how to describe it. So time was, Paul, when I was a younger, more, how should I say, put together person, before I started becoming an old,
Yeah.
I would be able to get into a car and I could drive, to and from Pennsylvania or Indianapolis or any other place I wanted to go, and I would never have to stop. I mean, those trips were quick enough that I could just fill up my tank of gas the night before, drive, and then drive back. And I wouldn't stop at all. But now, in my advanced age, I drink a lot of caffeine. I will stop and get coffee either, before I leave, or I'll, buy a Red Bull or some kind of energy drink. And I find that I just cannot, my bladder just isn't up to the task anymore. I'm finding myself stopping a lot. But my problem is that I'm very picky about my bathrooms.
Oh, yeah.
Like my nightmare scenario is having to poop on a long road trip, because there is just there are no good options. And shout out to all the people who sit to go to the bathroom. Like, I have mad props for you, because man, I have seen some literal S-holes. Like, I have seen some literally some bad scenes, man. Like, I have seen some bad things. Anyway, so I'm really picky about where I go to the bathroom. Now, here's the thing. Because I like efficiency and automation, I want to try to time my bathroom stops with needing to eat or to get gas. And that often leads to me having to go to the bathroom for longer than I should, which obviously creates a good deal of discomfort. But then, here's the thing, and this is what I really want to talk about, and you tell me if I'm crazy. I think I know the answer. But I will finally cave and be like, oh my God, I really have to pee or I'm going to die. I will pull over to a rest stop or a gas station, even regardless if I need gas or anything, and we'll visit the men's room, and I will start to pee. And tell me if this has ever happened to you. You've had to pee so bad that you get to the bathroom and you start peeing, and your bladder just wants to empty, but your penis gets tired. Has that ever happened to you? Like, your bladder's like, I have more to still come out of me, and your penis is like, I can't do this anymore, and it just starts to hurt.
Yeah. It doesn't happen very often, but yeah, I've had where I've held it for so long, and it's just can this please be over? This is getting uncomfortable. Yeah.
Right, and it's like your body feels it, your bladder feels it, but it's just like that particular part of your body just wants to be done.
And then you have that false stop where you think you're done.
Oh yeah,
and then that takes a pause and then nope, more.
Yeah. And it just starts to hurt.
Yeah.
And now, granted, I've had the good fortune in my life to never have a sexually transmitted disease, and I have no idea what a burning sensation feels like coming out of there. But this has to be up there, because it starts to get uncomfortable, because you're just kind of standing there and it's like, this is my life now. I don't know when this is going to end. And it just starts to be, it's fatiguing, right? So in the show notes, I wrote urethral exhaustion, because I really don't know how else to phrase that. I'm starting to experience that more and more, to the point where I am basically listening to my body more and starting to just urinate when I need to urinate.
Yeah, I mean, as a man of a certain age, I can't hold it as long as I used to as well, and I often feel the need to urinate. But then again, I'm drinking, I do drink a lot of water in a day. I probably drink more water than I need to.
Well, see, I think part of it for me, too, is that I am way more of a caffeine junkie now than I ever was in my early 20s. I didn't start drinking coffee until my late 20s. So now, if I stop for gas or food, a lot of times I will run in and I will get some sort of energy drink that doesn't have tons of, man, I'm on a swear train tonight, a crap ton of sugar in it. Or if I see a good coffee shop like a Tim Hortons, I've really come to appreciate McDonald's coffee. So I will stop at a McDonald's, I will stop at a Starbucks, I will stop at a Tim Hortons, or any other place that has semi-decent coffee. And I will usually just drink that. Even in the middle of the day, I can kind of sip on a cup of coffee and it keeps me alert and keeps me awake. But again, it has the added benefit of just kind of kicking your bladder your bladder in and just saying, yeah, you have to.
So do you want to hear something drastic and shocking?
I mean, sure.
I've given up coffee.
Okay. Good on you. Are you
Yep.
doing any caffeine?
I drink, most days I have exactly 1 cup of tea.
Okay.
Occasionally, yep.
I've seen you do the tea thing.
Yep.
I remember in my waning days at my previous job with you, I do remember the tea. But you've completely given up coffee.
Yeah, I haven't had coffee for, I don't know, 6 months now.
Were you ever a big energy drink guy? I know you'd have one every once in a while.
There was a point where I was a big, original Red Bull guy. I drank 2 or 3 of those a day. And then I realized at one point, like, wow, I just don't feel good. And I gave up Red Bull. But honestly, like, since I've given up caffeine for a long period of time, like, I no longer get the daytime drowsies. I don't know whether my body just got so dependent on, like, and for, the listeners, like, I was hardcore into coffee. I had multiple subscription artisanal coffee subscriptions sent to my house. I would grind my own beans. I would use a Chemex to brew it. I'd bring a thermos of coffee to work because I didn't want to drink the coffee they made. And I would drink coffee throughout the whole day. But now, like, I drink that cup of tea in the morning, and sometimes, like, if I had a late night or a rough sleep, I'll drink a second cup of tea after lunch. But yeah, I don't feel the need for it anymore. I don't have that 2 o'clock lull that I used to have.
Yeah. So now when you and I worked together, it was extremely easy access to go down and grab an energy drink from the cafeteria. There were multiple types. It was It was very enabling, and I know that I particularly had a habit of at least one a day. There were some days where I wouldn't have one, and I would maybe do something else. But now, working at home more, obviously that takes on a whole new meaning because it's just, I have to actually physically buy them in a store. Now, what I do now is I will brew coffee in the morning. Most mornings I will have a cup of coffee, and it is exactly 1 cup of coffee because I'm doing the pour over, which doesn't make a ton of coffee, right? I don't have an instant coffee maker. I don't have a Keurig. So the act of making a good cup of coffee, I have the patience in me to do that like once. Like, I will boot up my computer, I will do my login, and while everything's booting up and checking for my daily office updates, I will brew a cup of coffee. And then throughout the day, my wife very generously buys me. It's a cold brew coffee. It's a smaller can. It's about the size of a small Red Bull can, and it's cold brew coffee. And it doesn't have any calories in it, and it's just black coffee. It's cold, and I'm not an iced coffee guy, but the cold brew, like the nitro brews and things that she buys me, I'll usually have one of those in the afternoon. And then the other thing that we have in the house is we have energy drinks that have stevia in them.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're not bad. So, I'll have one of those in lieu of the coffee, but I really try to pace myself because I will find myself needing an afternoon pick-me-up sometimes, depending on what I have going on. If I'm engrossed in my work, I just kind of forget to drink any liquids. I don't know. But good on you. Good on you on giving up the coffee. But you're still doing caffeine, though. Your tea has a little bit of caffeine.
It does. So depends on what you drink. It can have almost or about half of what a cup of coffee has, but yeah, it works for me.
Wow, good for you. I would love to do that. When I was having all of those migraines, that was something that my the specialist I was seeing had me try, but it didn't make any difference. In fact, quitting coffee gives you headaches for another reason, or quitting caffeine gives you headaches for another reason. But no, caffeine was definitely not my trigger. And what's interesting is when I get a migraine, I will often seek out caffeine because that is something that makes me feel better. I don't know.
Yeah. For me, I was just drinking too much, and it was impacting my blood pressure. So I drink a cup of coffee, and then I felt like I was literally going to die. So that was a nice motivation to quit, but. I may go back at some point and, buy some coffee and try to do like 1 cup of coffee a day in the morning, break out the AeroPress again and just do 1 cup. But we'll see. So far, tea's working. Yeah.
I mean, the trade-off there, right? Just like with the pour-overs, is you're not going to make a ton of coffee. And
exactly.
It is a little bit of a time sink, but in a weird way, you're also limiting your intake. Which
exactly. Yep.
Yeah. No, that's a good plan. You were an AeroPress guy. You didn't do the pour over thing?
I did both. I was wanted to make one cup or one or two cups, depending on the thing. I would do an AeroPress. I ended up mostly, if you want a Google term, inverted method for the AeroPress is the method I use quite a bit.
The inverted method.
The inverted. Honestly, like I recommend the AeroPress a lot for people that are only making like one or two cups of coffee. It's super cheap. It's like $25. It comes with like 200 filters. It's a very easy cleanup. It's kind of like a French press, but plastic and better. Except that it only makes like one cup of coffee. When you're like French presses are very hard to clean up. The grounds get everywhere. Where the AeroPress, you can use pressure to push basically water through the grounds, and you end up with this puck-shaped disc of coffee grounds that are very tightly compacted, so it's very easy just to knock it into the trash can. It's not a lot of residue, and the coffee itself is very clean. The filters are very thick paper, much like a Chemex or a pour over, right? The reason you use those is the filters are so good, and it keeps the coffee very pure and clean. So yeah, I might break out the AeroPress at some point, but I've actually taken all of my coffee stuff and put it into the basement. That's how hardcore that's how hardcore I am.
Where the spiders can enjoy it.
Exactly, for the spiders.
Yeah, the spiders need coffee. Oh boy. Okay. Well, that's good. I'm proud of you, Paul. Okay. So a couple more topics here. I know that you and I have definitely thrown quite a few things on the document, and I've cherry-picked a few other topics here to talk about. And I'm going to make this a two-parter. You had put in the document what I consider to be a good video game.
Right.
Which I think we can talk about, but I think we also need to acknowledge that we are like in video game season right now. With fall approaching, there's a lot of big titles coming out. And I know that I listed a few in here that I'm looking forward to. What do you got? What are you looking forward to? What are you playing?
Well, I'm not sure that I'm super looking forward to anything coming out the rest of this. Well, I mean, I have some things I'm looking forward to, but they kind of go into next year. I'm kind of in a, well, I'm not going to say I'm in a drought. The reason this whole topic came to my brain is over the Memorial Day weekend, I replayed my personal favorite video game of all time, The Last of Us. I love that game. And I was just thinking, hey, like, why do I like this game so much? What makes a good game for me? And I thought it'd be a good podcast topic. I'm really looking forward to Cyberpunk 2077 that comes out in April 2020.
Yeah, I know it got pushed back a little bit, but that is definitely one that I'm also looking forward to for reasons that we've talked about.
Yep. I love Cyberpunk. I love The Witcher. CD Projekt Red is, I think, a really good developer, so hopefully do the topic justice. I've liked what I've seen so far.
Same.
I'm right now, after I finished The Last of Us, I listened to a couple video game podcasts, and they were talking about Control, which came out, I think, last week, and I started playing that. And that game is, well, it's weird, and it's buggy as heck, but I'm enjoying it so far.
I've heard good things about the game.
Yeah, it is strange. Like, I hope you like just, a bunch, like hundreds of people mumbling in your ear, because that's what you're going to get. It's just it has a really weird kind of horror vibe to it. But it's good. But you have to look over the bugs. Like, there's significant frame rate drops. Significant.
Well, you're playing on the PS4, right?
I am. I've heard there's issues all across, but yeah.
Well, my luxurious LED-filled PC probably won't have too many problems.
You may not. But other than that, I'm not looking forward to a ton. But then again, like, I'm generally very impulsive when it comes to games. Like, I'll play something, either it'll hold my attention or it won't. I'll play it until I'm either beat the game or I'm personally finished with it. And then I'm kind of just in a drought for whether I'll replace something that I like. And then I'll like hear about a new game. It's like, oh, that sounds like right up my alley. And then I just kind of jump into that. Now, what are you looking forward to, Drew?
Oh, man. Well, next week is the big launch of Borderlands 3. And I know there's a certain subsection of nerds that get all upset that it's on the Epic Games Store. I don't care. Like I don't have the energy to care about that. I have games across many digital distribution platforms. I can manage it. I'm an adult. I don't really care. But Borderlands 3 comes out next week. I'm really looking forward to that. I'm a huge fan of the Borderlands franchise. I think it's funny. I like the art style and I like the direction. And it's kind of a dumb looter shooter where you just run and gun, and it's pretty easy to play with your friends. And I have a couple friends that are teed up to play that. I just got an email yesterday that I am officially in the beta for Ghost Recon Breakpoint, which is in that whole Tom Clancy universe of cover shooters. Very akin to The Division, except a little more hardcore, a little more mil-simmy. I'm really looking forward to that. I know WoW Classic has officially landed very recently. I'm not back on that wagon yet.
Yeah, I am curious, but like
everybody loves it. Everybody loves it.
I don't need to.
I don't need to go back.
Exactly. I
did my
time. It's like an addict. Like, I don't want to start again.
Yeah.
I have my chip. I'm good. Like,
yeah.
I'm clean.
And in typical WoW Classic fashion, the launch was an absolute crap storm, and no one could log in. And it was just like, well, of course, that's what WoW Classic was back in the day. I mean, did everybody forget?
And Blizzard's generally not the best with rollouts. Like, they can get things going after a while, but yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the demand kind of surprised them too. Like,
yeah. Nostalgia is a very fickle thing with people. And I won't lie, those early WoW days where I was playing with the same group of people and we formed a guild and we did a lot of cool stuff, like those were good days. Like the mid 2000s were a good time to be a WoW player. Like I was in the beta I was in the pre-release or the beta or something for WoW, and I loved it. And then I played at launch, and I was never an MMORPG guy before that. Like I had tried EverQuest and I had tried, Shadows over Camelot and all that stuff, and I just could not get into it at all.
Yeah, I think I started playing like right before the first big expansion came out. I generally had avoided them. I had seen a lot of my friends just kind of like deteriorate playing like EverQuest and things like that. But once I get into WoW, like I really enjoyed it. We had a group of friends, like, we had a guild, we raided together. Yeah. But I remember the moment when I stopped. I was like, I sat down on my computer. I'm like, okay, you know what? Well, they're called professions? Like your basically your skills. Like, I'm gonna increase this profession, and then I realized that I was literally pulling virtual weeds for like 3 hours.
Yep.
I'm like, I'm done.
Yeah. Whenever like reality sets in with those games, it is pretty jarring.
Yeah.
It is pretty jarring. And like a lot of games that I play tend to have that collectible crafting type grind. I do gravitate to those games for some reasons, even if they're not like MMORPGs like WoW. I have a lot of games like that where it's, virtual weed pulling or, virtual delivery service for a while. So I get it. But I have a lot of friends that are back on that bandwagon, and it's good. It's good. I'm happy for them. But I will say that there's one game that has come out of nowhere that has its hooks into me real, real hard.
Okay.
And that game is Remnant from the Ashes. Have you heard of this?
I'm not sure I have. I take that back. I'm sure I have, but I don't remember what it is.
I couldn't tell you if it's on consoles or not, but the gist is this. I mean, you are familiar with the genre of games known as the Souls genre, right?
Yes, yeah.
So like Dark Souls, Demon Souls, Bloodborne, Sekiro, games like that. Games that are brutally hard, basically require you to face roll all over the place to not take any damage. There's character progression, and the game is just hard. It doesn't give you a lot of direction as to what's going on. You're kind of left to your own devices, and you have to basically take your time. You can't speed run it. I mean, you could if you're good, I guess, but you don't. The idea isn't to move quickly through it. So Remnant came out, and the idea is that it is a Souls-type game, but it has guns. And it takes place in like this weird alternate universe of many universes kind of colliding. You can play with up to 3 people. You traverse through areas. You collect loot that lets you upgrade certain weapons and acquire new abilities. It has a very, very unique theme. I think the graphics are very good. I think the gameplay is extremely tight. The controls, especially for a keyboard and mouse game, are very, very tight. and you have to have, some dodging precision. The boss fights have mechanics that require you to learn them and iterate through them. And I have been playing this with a couple people that I work with, and I'm having a very, very good time. And I typically do not like these games at all, but I think the combination of there's a lot of range combat. There is some melee combat, but it's mostly range combat, and it's difficult, but not unfair. Like, I feel like some of the Souls games can get a little unfair. This isn't to the unfair point yet, although we did get to a boss the other night that made me rage quit. So maybe that's not entirely true, but it's been a very good game. I've enjoyed it a lot. And I hope to complete, or maybe not complete, but get to the end of that game or further along to where I could take a break and get into Borderlands next week. But it's been a very good game. You should definitely watch some YouTube videos of it, because I think the theme is right up your alley.
Yes, I tend to avoid those that genre of game. I feel like I don't need that level of difficulty. I'm not sure I need in my life, but I would definitely check it out.
Yeah. And then the other one that is still on my radar, and I have not been able to play, I had an opportunity to play it with someone that owns it, and the opportunity has passed me over, is I really want to get into Wolfenstein Youngblood. I haven't had a chance to play that yet.
Me either. It's on it's on the list. I've loved the recent Wolfenstein games. Those are just spectacular.
They're really good. They're really good.
Yep.
And the other thing worth mentioning is I know you also have a Switch. Did you see the big Nintendo announces the other day?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, so there are officially some Super Nintendo games for the console on there now.
Yeah, I haven't checked that out yet, but
it was supposed to launch today, but I checked it a few times during the day, and I didn't see any updates come through yet. I'll probably check it after this and maybe play one in bed, but...
And yeah, I keep hearing good things about Astral Chain on the Switch as well.
Yes, I too have heard that.
I enjoyed the by Platinum Games. They did like Bayonetta's and something else, but I enjoyed the Bayonetta games, and this looks like this could be right up my alley. Yeah.
All right, so having said all that, having talking about games that we're interested in or playing right now, so let's jump into the meat of your original question here, and then talk about what really drives us to our games. And you have a few different categories here, so why don't we do this? Why don't we visit each of these categories, and maybe we'll come back and rank them, I think.
Okay.
But why don't we talk about different aspects of these different things that you have listed here that kind of pull us in. So the first one you have listed here is story. And I think that a good story is important to most games, but I think there's exceptions to that rule. Well,
for me, story is almost the most important thing for me. If a story, most of the time, I have caught myself playing games that just, there's no story. It's just a good gameplay loop. But the games I really get hooked with, it's the story. That's why I enjoy The Last of Us so much. That's why I'm enjoying Control. That's why I enjoyed Spider-Man and God of War on the PS4. It was mostly just because of the story. I wanted to keep playing to figure out what was going to happen next.
Well, I think it needs to be mentioned that the games you are mentioning right now are not just games that have a good story. Those are basically god-tier PS4 games. They're just really, really good games.
And absolutely, yeah.
And the story, I think, does play a large part into that, especially The Last of Us, because holy crap.
Yeah. I've played it four or five times now. This is the first time I played it on the PS4 with the remastered edition, and that story gets me every single time, man.
Do you cry?
I did not this time, but it was close. Maybe that's a topic for a future show. I'm a frequent crier. I cry a lot. But this time it got me, but I didn't cry. No. The first time though, oof, no spoil.
Yeah.
If you haven't played The Last of Us, just borrow someone's PS4 or PS3 and just play it. You can get through it in about 20 hours. Yeah. Oof.
Yeah, it got me. I cried.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. So, I think, so for me, I don't think the story is the most important thing to me, because I have played a lot of games that I haven't enjoyed that have had either really, really weak stories or really, really poorly written stories, and I still have enjoyed the heck out of them. So, a good example of that is The Division. So, The Division 1 had a good story, but I wouldn't say it's a great story. It's a bioterror event in New York, and you're an agent that has survived, and you have to restore order to chaos by basically murdering everybody. ignoring that giant plot hole that you're basically a sanctioned assassin for the government, but yet you're supposed to be helping people. I mean, there's a bit of cognitive dissonance there that is just, I don't know. If you, one of those games where the story is there and it's semi-decent and retold through audio clips that you find throughout the game, and it's a good story, but if you scratch the surface a little too hard, you're going to be disappointed. And that's why, like, there are games that I play that have a theme but don't have a story. And the one that I always point to that I love to death, even though it infuriates me, is Enter the Gungeon. Have you ever played that game?
I have not, no.
So Enter the Gungeon is a roguelike to where every time you play it, the map and the layout that you encounter is different. So it's a procedurally generated dungeon, and the idea is you have to basically, in one life, get to the bottom floor of this dungeon. And it is a roguelike that is also a bullet hell, and bullet hells are projectiles on the screen, don't get hit by any of them.
Right.
It's very hard, but it's very whimsical because there's like 300 different guns, from really, really just like, oh, it's an AK-47 to a gun that is a pea shooter that literally shoots peas. So it's a very whimsical little game. The pixel art is adorable. It's a very, very fun game. It's a very, very hard game. It's a very, very frustrating game. But there is no really story. The idea is you are trying to get to the bottom level of this dungeon to get a gun that lets you shoot time. Like, that's the story. That's it. There is nothing else. There's nothing else. And yet I love that game. So is that a story or is that a theme? I don't know.
Yeah, it's probably more, I would say probably more a theme. It's just enough story to justify, the gameplay, and but it's a little bit of a story, but yeah, it's not story focused, right? There's probably no cutscenes. There's probably no, not a lot of dialogue or yeah.
My favorite games are games where the story's there if I want to see it. Like narrative games, and like The Last of Us and God of War and stuff are at their heart narratives because you're following a protagonist through there. Games that I like, it kind of puts the narrative off to the side if you want it. So using The Division as an example, if you want to know the lore of the world of The Division, it's there. You can seek it out and you can learn about it. And some of the missions do touch on some of it, but you don't have to experience that. It can just be shoot mans. Like, if that's what you're into and that's what you want to do for an hour, you go crazy. And like Remnant, the game that I mentioned, is kind of the same way. There is a ton of lore in that game, but it's very verbose and very deep. And like, I get like 2 pages into an 8-page piece of lore and I'm like, I want to get back to stabbing people. And it's just like, I tend to, I don't want the narrative to keep hitting me over the head, which is why I think I liked games like Portal, because Portal interjects with pieces of story when it needs to. Otherwise, it's just solve puzzles. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if story is the most important thing to me. No, I think I think it has to be there though. And I can't think of a game other than Solitaire that I played recently that had a story. Although, man, wouldn't it be cool to make it like a Solitaire like horror game?
And I'll play games without a story, but the ones that really grab me and the ones that I keep coming back to and the ones that like I'm thinking about on my drive home are the more story, like narrative driven. Like I had a short little session of Control before the podcast. I played maybe 30 minutes, and probably for 10 of that, I just had the controller down watching a movie. Like it was, and I loved every minute of it.
Yeah, like, well, the Metal Gear games are famous for that, right? Where it's like 10 minutes of gameplay and then 50 minutes of like...
Yeah.
Yeah, and, like, I don't like that. I don't like that. I want the story to be succinct. Like, bad guy here, kill bad guy. I would say that, like, the one game where I felt I felt going in like the story was going to be very heavy-handed and over the top and annoying, but I ended up loving the hell out of, was the first Gears of War game.
Yeah, I've never played
I thought
those.
It was going to be this cliche, tropey, macho dudes with machine guns that have chainsaws killing people. And it absolutely is, but you can't help but fall in love with the protagonist along the way. That to me is still, I think, probably one of my favorite game stories that I remember in recent memory. I don't know. And like Hollow Knight, which I brought up on this show before, Hollow Knight has some deep lore behind it, but it doesn't hit you over the head. But it's so intriguing that it makes you want to learn about it. Like, there have been times in Hollow Knight where I have gone to the wiki to read more in depth about things that aren't readily apparent to my dumb brain. You know what I mean? Like stuff that other people can piece together that I can't. And I'm like, oh, well, that makes sense. And like I will actually read the wiki to learn more about the lore. Those are the stories that really get me. I don't know. Yeah. Okay. So the next one on here is multiplayer. Where do you land on multiplayer?
I almost, outside of things that are like, couch games or like party games, I almost exclusively avoid multiplayer games. I'm not a person. I'm not like. I have a hard time. I used to play a lot of multiplayer games. Obviously, we're talking about WoW. I'm no longer at a point in my life where I have the commitment to really dedicate to a good multiplayer game. Because for me, the great parts about multiplayer is playing with a group of people that you enjoy talking to, and you have the voice chat going, and you're having fun. You're hanging out and you're playing. That being said, like I keep finding myself like I've stopped. I'm done. But like when Destiny 2 came out, like when Destiny first came out, I played a ton of Destiny. When Destiny 2 came out, I played a ton of Destiny 2. And then there's a point where like, what? I'm just done. Like I don't need to find better pants. I'm good. Thanks. But multiplayer is just not something I look for anymore. Now you play a lot of multiplayer games, Drew.
Yeah, I do. So typically when I sit down to play a game at night, a lot of times it will be multiplayer, right? Like I know that I've mentioned games like Grand Theft Auto and Wolfenstein Youngblood, and Remnant is definitely multiplayer. Borderlands, I'm expecting to play multiplayer. The last go around of Call of Duty that we did, I expect to play multiplayer. So multiplayer, I'm not going to call it a necessity because sometimes I will hop in a game that is multiplayer and just play by myself and kind of let fate take me to whoever's on my team. Obviously if I can play with friends, I prefer to, but I find myself enjoying games that are mostly multiplayer. And maybe that goes back to that story piece where it's hard to build a narrative game around having three people that are at the same point in a story.
Yeah.
And Remnant falls a little bit to that because you will encounter cutscenes that clearly other people have already seen if they played in their own game.
Yep.
So it kind of slows them down and you're experiencing it and you kind of want to know, but then it goes on too long, so you skip it. I don't know. So yeah, I think I'm not going to say multiplayer is the most thing for me, but I definitely enjoy multiplayer.
Yeah, like for me, I think I'm almost at a point now where if a game is primarily multiplayer, I just skip it. Like it's not for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, the next one is, I think, the most important thing to me, and that is the platform on which you play the game.
Yep.
So that is the most important for me for reasons that I am primarily a PC gamer. I am. And I live in a world now where, more and more games are becoming cross-platform. So the biggest releases that you can play typically have a PC version. There are very few games outside of like PlayStation or Xbox exclusives that don't have a PC version. I think Sony is a bigger culprit here, right? Like I'm not going to be able to play God of War or Last of Us on my PC because that's a Sony exclusive. But what I find interesting these days is that Microsoft is doing more and more with like their Game Pass, to where if you have Game Pass Ultimate, if there is a game that is available both on Xbox and PC, you can play it both places. And a good example of that is like Forza and Forza Horizon. My save is actually shared between them. So I could play on my computer, and if I feel like picking up a controller and playing in my living room, like I can still play and pick up where I left off, which I think is really, really cool. And I'm thinking that more and more things are going to go that way. But for me, a game almost has to be on the computer for me to enjoy it.
Yeah. So,
and part of that is because I've invested so much in my computer, right? Like I have
absolutely, yeah.
I have put the time and the effort into building a computer that can play games at the highest quality on the best monitor and the highest frame rate that I could possibly get. So like for me, from a budgetary standpoint, from a return on investment standpoint, like that's the place I want to play.
Yeah, and I used to be a PC gamer, building my own computers and doing all that stuff. Now, granted, I did it in a time before LCDs, so, thank goodness for that.
Yeah.
So I kind of find the whole, like, build your own PC thing just to be gross. That's not something I'm interested in anymore. In fact, I give most people, like, when I see LEDs in a computer, my first reaction is just barf and to ridicule them. as much as I possibly can. I don't like it. I think it's just, even the whole notion about putting your computer together, having to deal with all of that, having to deal with Windows. Like, I'm just done with that. And I also have ended up with kind of a shoulder injury. So anytime I do try to sit down and play anything that's very mouse heavy, after about 30 minutes of playing it, like, my shoulder's wrecked for a week. So I'm 100%, console at this point. A, because I don't have to have a gaming PC, and B, controllers. Yeah.
Yeah, now I will say that, like, the exception for me is I do like my Switch.
Yeah, me too.
Like, that is about the only console, air quotes, that I typically play. And a lot of times it's if I have company over, or I'm laying in bed at night and I want to just play something quick, right? Like, I'm replaying, like, one of the Final Fantasies on there right now. And when these SNES games launch on there, I'm going to be enjoying those a lot.
Me too. Woo.
So, but the Switch is about the only console that I consider myself to play. So I would say that the games I enjoy the most is pretty much dedicated by the platform. And okay, next we have difficulty, and this is an interesting one. So tell me what you think here.
So I don't like games that are hard for the sake of being hard, or like the Souls type of games, right? Where it's part of the enjoyment is the punishment and having, like, the whole, get good, right? Like, you really have to practice over and over again. For me, I will mostly start at just whatever the standard difficulty is in a game. I don't mind a game that ramps up the difficulty. Like, it's always nice when you've put, like, 20, 30 hours into the game and you really feel like it's getting difficult, but my skills have also improved. Yeah, because as you play a game, you practice a game, you play it, you get better, right? So I do enjoy that. If for some reason that I feel like the game is getting too hard for me and I want to enjoy the rest of the story, I have no problem cranking that difficulty down to easy and just getting through it. I try not to do that. I try to just I feel that, like, normal is how the developers intended to have it be played. So I try to do that. But, like, games that are just games where the difficulty is a, like, selling factor, right? Like, this is a hard game, and some people just really love that, and that's just not for me anymore.
You must be this much of a gamer to enjoy it.
And I don't begrudge those people. Like when I was younger, like, I spent, like, hours just, mastering, like, the Tony Hawk games, trying to get the combos down where I can get, a 60 string combo and get the highest score. Like, there was a point in my life where I would have loved the Dark Souls games, where just, the punishing, you fail, you try over, you learn, like, you're learning every time. But anymore, it's like, pass.
Yeah, so for me, I'm with you. I will play most games on the normal difficulty setting. Now, what's interesting is a lot of games, and I'll use Borderlands as an example, is after you beat the game, you can go back and replay it, like a new game plus type situation where you still have your same character, but all the enemies are, like, dialed up to 11. And it's hard because the game is, like, forcing you to pick up where you left off with, enemies that are very, very high level. And you have to play the game again, and you have to relearn some strategies to get good. Those type of difficulty spikes I enjoy because, you're kind of at the peak of the game, and the game is like, okay, you thought you were good, now we're going to amp it up. I can accept those type of challenges. The type of challenges that I can't accept are games that are either janky or games that don't control well, which then basically handicaps you at any difficulty. And the games that I felt were too hard, and I'm probably going to catch some crap for this, were the Assassin's Creed games. Only because the controls for me were ridiculously bad.
Yeah.
And, that is a game that you have to be quick on the controls. There is a lot of dexterity in a game like that. And I could not get into it because I could not get over the controls. The controls, I felt, made that game way too complex.
Yeah, I really appreciate a game where, the difficulty just gradually increases throughout the game, and it really, like, you get better at the game, and the game's getting more difficult, and you feel good about yourself. Like, yes, I am getting good at this. Like, yes, it's getting harder, but the game is kind of, taught you how to be better. Games were like, you're going along like, hey, I think I'm doing pretty good, and then the difficulty spikes up randomly, and you're like, I was not ready for that. Like, I feel that's just kind of like lazy game design. Then again, I've never actually designed a game, so I don't know how hard it is. But
so I'm with you on that. So I am, and this also speaks to the difficulty. I am not the type of person that wants to get a tooltip every 30 seconds about some new feature when I'm starting out a game. I find that annoying. But at the same time, I don't like games that will purposely let you keep failing because it's unclear of what you should do next. And I feel that the Dark Souls games are really good at that, because I vividly remember honestly sitting down and trying my best to play Dark Souls. Well, specifically Demon Souls. And there is no guidance. You are dropped into a hub world and you can go anywhere. But, not having a high enough leveled character when you don't know what level the enemies are, and you don't know what their resistances are, and you don't know what their weak points are, the game will keep letting you bounce off it, giving you no indication that you should not be there until you finally give up and go try something else. And I
even found that to be a little bit of a problem with like the Bethesda games. The recent one, crap, I almost did a swear. All the fantasy games, like the Skyrims, the Fallouts, I enjoy those relatively, but there's just some places where you have to know not to go. Like, it's a big open world, you can go anywhere, but you can't go here to the end of the game because you'll just die.
But to that point, what game really did that well was Breath of the Wild. Because Breath of the Wild,
that's true.
You could go to the end of the game right away if you wanted to, and you had the skill to do it. It'd be really, really hard. But at the same time, it isn't like the game doesn't tell you what to do. It dumps you into the world. It gives you a rough hint of how things should work, like seeking out shrines and doing quests, and it gradually nudges you over towards those bosses, right? Whereas with some games, they give you no indication of what's going on, and you're kind of left to your own devices, and it rewards players that can figure that out faster. Well, listen, I'm kind of dumb. Like, sometimes I do need pointed in a general direction of, here's where you should be. And the thing about the Souls games in particular, I know I'm picking on that a lot, but, a lot of times it's you'll go to this section, you could only get half of it done, in which point you have to then backtrack, go to this other section, do half of that, and then go back to this other place, pick up where you left off, fight your way back to that, and then continue with no indication of where you're supposed to go. And the only way you would ever know that, especially being new to the game, is basically having a walkthrough in front of you, which is not how I want to play a game.
No. Yeah, if I get really stuck on something, I'll go and find a hint, but for me, that's a last resort. I really just want to get through the game organically, experience it for myself, and then after I've beat a game, then that's when I go and I get if I really enjoyed it, I'll find the subreddit and read all the stuff and find all the Easter eggs, and I've played many games on the new Game Plus mode where you get to keep all your stuff and the difficulty ratchets up, and you're it's like watching a movie again, right? You watch a movie, you really enjoy it, and you watch it again, and you're picking up all the little things and all the foreshadowing and, all of the neat little tricks that they did with the story that you kind of missed the first time. So I enjoy that. But where was I going with this? Wow, my brain is fried. Games are good, Drew. I like video games.
Yep, I do too.
So, how do you feel about graphics?
Well, again, I'm probably a little inclined to enjoy better graphics over crap graphics, just because, again, I have the hardware to push higher things.
Right.
I am not of the camp that you need good graphics to have a good game.
As much as I tell myself that, I tend to enjoy games with better graphics just more. This whole pixel art renaissance, that's cute and all, but that's not for me. At least not going back and playing a retro game, a game that I played in my childhood. I love that, but
well, hold on a second though. So when you're saying graphics, are you specifically saying 3D graphics or any graphics?
any graphics. I mostly play games that are 3D now that I really think about it, though.
Because here's the thing, right?
Yeah.
I think there's degrees. You can have good 3D graphics, and you can have bad 3D graphics.
That's true,
like
and you can have good,
bad,
yeah.
You can have bad pixel graphics or good pixel graphics.
You're absolutely right. You're right.
And, you know, listen, my wife will tell you is that her life would be considerably easier in all respects if I was easier on her eyes. And I think,
Right.
I think the same thing
exactly.
applies to. I think the same thing applies to games. I think that your enjoyment factor goes up if a developer has put, you know, in good lighting and good graphics and makes the world feel alive and there's variety in enemies and good color palette. Like it is an art form, right? And you can look at old Bethesda games as just being smears of different shades of brown.
Yeah.
And
Beige
maybe,
the game.
Maybe that brown really pops and it looks really good, but it's all still brown versus a pixel art game that has a very vivid palette, like Enter the Gungeon or Dead Cells or any of these other little games that have come out. You know, so when I think of graphics, I just think of I just think of a vivid visual experience. I don't care if it's 2D, 3D, 2.5D, whatever that is. I don't really care, but I think that good graphics definitely make a game make a good game better, but good graphics won't necessarily make a bad game good.
I agree with that. Yes.
You know, so I think that is more of like an aperitif to a good game.
It's the cherry on top. It's whipped cream.
Because honestly, some of my favorite games, text-based games. If they tell a good story, I don't really need graphics, right?
Yeah. Papers, Please.
Oh my God, I love that game.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Shout out to Georgie. Oh boy, that Papers, Please. That's going on the list for the show notes. I friggin' love that game. Gloria to Aristoska.
I think you actually bought that game for me as a gift.
Did you play it all the way through?
Did you get a couple? I did. Did
you get all the endings?
I don't think I got all the endings. No.
Oh my God, it's so good though. So the premise of this game, for those of you that don't want to play it, is you are basically a border patrol agent in some dystopian 80s. Basically, it's the Soviet Union.
Exactly.
They don't specifically say that. And your role in the game is you have to check increasingly more difficult and varying degrees of bureaucracy to basically let people into the country or not, to the point where you're actively basically picking out who gets arrested and who doesn't. And
they also have a family you have to take care of.
Right. You get paid based on how many people you process. So it behooves you to move quick, which forces you to make mistakes, which actually costs you money, and then your family dies. So really good game. Really, really good game. I definitely recommend checking that out.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Wow. That was a solid 30 minutes of video games.
It was.
But it's good. It's something we enjoy, and this is our podcast. So everybody else, just suck it. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, it's one of my. It's still one of my hobbies. I enjoy. I don't do it as much as I used to, but I still enjoy a good video game.
Okay. Well, Paul, tell people where they can reach out to us, because we haven't had a lot of listener interaction in a while, and we would love some listener interaction.
Yeah. You can find the podcast on the internet. We're at doingtheirbest.com. We're on Twitter at doingbestpod. And you can always send us an email at contact@doingtheirbest.com. Yeah. Where can people find you on the internet, Drew?
Yeah, these days you can find me over on Twitter at Pitferg. I actually started a new blog post today.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've been blogging, and I had someone reach out to me about a home lab question, and I realized that I've never sufficiently blogged about my home lab, which is interesting because I'm spending so much time in Azure these days, but I still have my home lab for a variety of reasons. So I will probably blog about that. I'm working on that blog post, so you can check that out over on port1433.com is where that'll be posted, and I'm sure that I will tweet about it. So
I'm sure we'll talk about it on the show as well. So
yeah, that would be a very good topic about your lab environments, because I know that you probably have one as well.
I really don't anymore. Yeah, I'm kind of past that point in my life.
I feel like you probably know someone that could get you some Azure credits. Maybe.
Nah. You're not wrong.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is like, I don't want to get into it too much now, but mostly for me, like if I want to really test something out, I just throw it in the cloud and then tear it down when I'm done. So, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like a good place to start for our next podcast will be very dev focused, because I want to talk about containers, I want to talk about lab, I want to talk about all that stuff.
Yeah, let's make episode 15, a very tech heavy episode. Let's plan for that. You can look forward to that, everybody.
Yeah, gird your loins, everybody.
We're gonna nerd out.
Yeah, we are gonna more nerd out than usual, I think. Let's see. Have we talked about where people can find the podcast online and how to contact us? We've done all that, right?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Oh, sweet. Well, this has been another great episode, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks, everyone. Catch you next week.
All right.